right, for those of you joining in over on YouTube, getting ready to go live here on TikTok. I already talked to TJ. He's going to be in for as long as he possibly can. He didn't know if he'd be able to make the entire live. So we'll see what happens here, what we get going. I got some things we can talk about. We got a deal as far as keeping the government funded. New deal goes all the way through March 14th. So we've got that we can talk about. As we get some people in here, we're going to be talking news, politics tonight, like I normally do. We got some stuff we can be talking about. We got a government funding deal. Debbie says, "Hey Eric, hey chat." Well, hi Debbie. I literally just got started like 30 seconds ago. Just starting to get people in the room. We got a lot we can talk about. Waiting for obviously my moderator TJ to jump in. We got a government funding deal was finalized between Republicans and Democrats. They are going to kick the can down the road once again, all the way out to March 14th. Basically keeping all the funding levels right where they are. Nothing's changing. Debbie says TikTok won't send me notifications, but I know what time you start. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for knowing. I never have an actual real plan. Just kind of depends how my day goes as far as what time I normally start. And I don't know why TikTok doesn't send you the notifications. But as we're waiting for people to get in here, we do have a deal for government funding, which is good. Government's going to stay open all the way through March 14th. And at that point, Republicans are going to have to come up with another deal. Now, Republicans are pissed at their own party for obviously working with Democrats and getting this bipartisan deal going. So there's that. Like, Speaker Johnson may be out of a job because he worked out this bipartisan deal. But government's going to be funded at least through March 14th, and that'll give them time to come up with another deal. They're probably going to end up having to work with Democrats, kick the can down the road. Debbie says, can Trump and his admin restrict which foods people eat on EBT? I know there's some call for it. I just don't know if it is something they can pass with a rule or if that would take an act of Congress. And with as limited as their majorities are, I don't know if they could get it through Congress. Now, if they can pass it as part of a rule package, maybe. But it's also going to depend on whether or who ends up being head of the USDA and Health and Human Services. I just don't see RFK Jr. getting through the Senate confirmation process, so they're going to have to pick somebody else. Republicans know they can't approve RFK Jr. He's a nut job. He's so far off his rocker, his own family, the Kennedy family, is like, yeah, he's nuts. So, like, RFK's not getting out of the Senate confirmation process. They're going to make him look ridiculous. Debbie said, Bernie said he'll hear RFK out. Well, he'll say he'll hear him out, sure. But RFK is going to come up there, say things like, I'm getting rid of vaccines and I want to cut food stamps. And he's going to be saying all kinds of that stuff. And that's not what Bernie's going to want to be about, especially if it involves cutting any sort of money to help people. Bernie's all about helping people and everything. So he may listen to him, but he's only saying that up until the point when he's going to hear him out and go, yeah, I can't vote for that. I would be surprised if Bernie voted to confirm RFK Jr. Like, the only way I think Bernie would do it is if he knew for sure there was already enough no votes that would sink RFK Jr. or something like that. But yeah, we've got a deal as far as keeping the government open, so that's good. Government's going to be funded through March 14th. So they worked out that bipartisan deal, but it could cost Speaker Johnson his speakership because the usual suspect Republicans are mad that they worked with Democrats. Um, Debbie says the same budget. Yes. Yep. Nothing between now and March 14th. Nothing really changes. Um, Actually, they've increased the budget a little bit. They extended the farm bill for another year. Um, 10 billion in aid to farmers, 100 billion more disaster relief, and some other stuff. Debbie says Johnson should be tired of being threatened by Republicans. Yeah, they're constantly going after their own party, and then you have they're going to have such a narrow majority to begin with. They only have the House by 3 seats, and Donald Trump has already pulled 3 people out of the House, or 4 seats, I think, is what they have the majority by. It's like 220 to 215. No, 3 seats. That's 3 seats. And Donald Trump has already pulled three people out of the House to be in his cabinet, one of which already resigned and will not be taking their seat, even though they won't be confirmed into the cabinet. That is Matt Gaetz. Debbie said, I'm not familiar with the farm bill. What's in the bill? A lot of things. I'm not even familiar. Coming from a farming state, what's all in the farm bill? There is a lot of things about farm insurance, crop insurance, farm subsidies. That's what authorizes, I think it's as part of the USDA, authorizes food stamps, etc. Manti says, House Republicans are too busy fighting against each other than to do the job we pay them for. Yeah. That's kind of what I was saying. They have 3 seats in the next upcoming Congress, and then you have that Spartz, Victoria Spartz, I think is her name, said she's not taking any committee assignments. She's going to stay a Democrat or stay a Republican, but she's not taking committee positions, and she wants to just work with Doge. So she's not even really a Republican at this point. She's kind of her own thing. They can't agree to do anything. Debbie said, if Trump has mass deportations, can the farm bill stop them from going under? Possibly. There's a lot of things in the farm bill. It could potentially save them. I don't know if it would completely save them from everything, but I know parts of what's in the farm bill is like what covers your crop insurance. So, if there's a farmer outside of town here who ends up losing his entire crop because it floods late in the season, or, Twister comes through and destroys a field full of corn or what have you, the crop insurance kicks in and they get paid as if they would have produced a crop. Well, Nunya can now see Nunya my chat. Debbie says, I hate to see this happen to farmers even though they voted for Trump. Yeah. Hey, there's TJ. I thought he'd be along. Debbie says, I hate to see this happen to farmers even though they voted for Trump. Yes. Me too. And I thought they would have learned their lesson because of the tariffs going back to 2018. But they didn't, and now he's talking tariffs again. That leads to a trade war. We could potentially have crops rotting in the field again, and them having to do another big bailout for farmers. Speaking of TJ the plumber, he is our great moderator, does a good job of keeping people out and keeping our chat safe, keeping my live up, keeping the Rational Boomers live up. And if you check out the Rational Boomer podcast, TJ is today's guest over on the Rational Boomer podcast. I recommend you give it a listen. It's a good podcast. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And tomorrow I'm on the podcast, so I also recommend you give that a listen. And If you've never heard the Rational Boomer, either search him up here on TikTok, Rational Boomer, or there is a link in my bio, in my link tree that links to affiliated creators. Also links to TJ if you want to follow him. Because we're trying to get him up over that 1,000 mark so we can do combined video lives. But give it a listen. TJ's today's guest. I'm tomorrow's guest. It was a good. Both of them are going to be really good podcasts. TJ says, "Well, it got cut short." Yeah, your podcast did get cut short. Something happened to half of it, but the half that's there, really, really good. Brendan said, "Listen to it today." Well, yeah, I listened to it this morning too. It was really good. Debbie said, "Have you seen the stunt Pelosi pulled? Do you think AOC will win?" Talking about the oversight committee and whether or not AOC will get the chair position that she wanted. And I looked into it a little bit right before I went on the live. It sounds like she did not get it. They instead went with a 74-year-old representative whose name I can't think of. It wasn't a name I'm familiar with, but a much older Democrat. Rebecca said the second half was so good, it's sad it didn't get recorded. Yeah, it's too bad. I would have loved to hear it. Brent said all of Boomer's podcasts are awesome. They are. I'm just going to kick you out of here, Lab Master. Farmers were subsidized with a portion of the tariffs. They only needed the subsidy and the bailout because of the tariffs. Oh. We've got a significant portion of this country who don't understand how things work. And they don't even when current events are going on, they're not interested enough to fully pay attention. They just believe things that are told to them later on. But yeah, I was saying earlier, we have the deal, we have the funding deal, which is good. Government's going to stay open through March 14th. And Republicans are going to spend the time between now and then fighting with themselves, which I'm here for all of it. They're not going to be able to get much done. They're too busy arguing and not getting along. You got part of the Republican caucus, they want offsetting cuts for any new spending. You got another one who wants just massive cuts to begin with. Trudeau says tariffs save Canadian jobs. How would Trump's be any different? Well, I don't know what Canada uses for tariffs, but you can use tariffs very, very short term and very targeted, can do a lot of good things. He's talking about just widespread on multiple countries and just going after everybody for a long time. They're especially going after some of our biggest trading partners. I mean, two of our biggest trading partners are Canada and Mexico, and he wants to go after them with tariffs. Yeah, we have a trade deficit with Canada, in part because there are 330 people, 330 million people in the United States. There are 40 million people in Canada. Obviously, we're going to buy more from them than they buy from us. That just makes sense. Yeah, not dealing with that. Also not dealing with that stupidity. Saying, why don't we take over the world? Jesus Christ. That's some dumbass bullshit right there. Why don't we take over the world? These Republicans, man, they're something. Now, I did a TikTok earlier talking about it. North Carolina has sent a resolution to Congress saying they want to be counted toward a convention of states, calling for amendments to the Constitution. Debbie said they argue and fight when they win. It's weird. Yeah, it is. It's very weird. They win and they're still mad. I think it was because they geared up for a fight they were expecting to lose. They fell ass backwards into a victory, and now they don't know what to do. But I was saying North Carolina has asked to be another state calling for a convention of states. And a lot of people are worried about what would happen if they call for a convention of states. Now, it's never happened. TJ says that's not happening. Yeah, it may never happen, but there is some call for it. But the thing is, even if they do call for a convention, all it does is bypass Congress. Manti says they like to fight and hate and lie like Trump. Yeah. Artie says they need 38 states. They need 38. I think it's 34 to call for the convention. And then once the convention agrees on whatever amendments may get passed, it still takes 38 states to pass those amendments. It's not an automatic, easy process. Debbie said they aren't talking about eggs and groceries anymore unless they want to tell poor people what to eat. Yeah, that's the other thing. They're no longer complaining about how bad the economy is. And suddenly, oh man, Donald Trump got elected. He's the president-elect. The economy's great. Give him credit for all of it. No, they just opened their damn eyes and quit living in the prices that were 4 years ago. And it's not just MAGA Republicans. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that do that, especially if it's something you don't buy very often. You remember the last time you purchased it, and if it was high priced, you went, "Oh man, that's so high." Or you remember the highest price you paid for something if you buy it repeatedly. There's a lot of people that do that. But they quit talking about the high price of groceries and the high price of inflation and gas and everything. And now they're just not talking about it. Debbie says, can they still get government assistance if they succeed in the convention? Yes. All the convention of states would be proposing potential amendments to the Constitution. Normally you would need 2/3 of both chambers of Congress. A convention of states would bypass Congress, and it would allow this convention to send amendments to all the states to ratify. That's what they're hoping to do. Now, some of the things that they could potentially do with a convention of states is like some stuff that wouldn't happen through Congress normally. For example, term limits or age limits on Congress. Members of Congress aren't going to vote themselves out with a term limit or an age limit. This might be one way to get that kind of an amendment up to a vote in all of the states. Now, whether 38 states would approve it, no idea. Any proposed amendments in a convention would still have to go through the 38 state ratification process. So it's not like it wouldn't be an automatic. Deegan says, why Biden's executive order for federal employees to work from home make Trump mad? They're targeting work from home because they're dumb. That's the simple answer. The long answer is they see it as a waste of money. They're convinced everybody who is working from home is actually like not doing any real work. Is logging in, collecting a paycheck, doing nothing. And nothing's getting done. So they think that the only way they can get work accomplished is by forcing you back into an office building. And they want to force you back into an office building so they can make sure you are actively logged in, you're at your desk, you're not taking excessive bathroom breaks. They don't want you working from home. They don't want you, watching a training video while folding your laundry. They want you to sit there staring at that computer screen, and they want to be able to do this. If they were really concerned about government efficiency and saving money, they would realize work from home is a good thing. Now you can sell office spaces you don't need anymore. You can quit renting office spaces. It's actually a benefit, and having remote work opens you up to a much wider group of potential employees, because hey, you might have, like, the main office might be in DC, but if you can work remote and you're working from California, as long as you get your work done, what's the difference? TJ says there'll never be a convention of states. Probably not, but I'm only talking about it because North Carolina passed a resolution today wanting to get added to the list of states calling for it. Debbie said, oh my God, the innocent people and children in red states are going to be hit the hardest. They could. They could be hit the hardest, especially with some of their cuts. If they go after some of the, if they do start cutting entitlement programs, that's the or what Republicans call entitlements, any sort of welfare or government assistance of any kind. There's a lot of red states in the top 15 that take a lot of money and help fund their own people to survive, and they will be the hardest hit. Debbie said, wait, what? Biden made an executive order, or do they want him to do an executive order? I think he did do an executive order after COVID allowing work from home. I think that's what they're talking about. Rebecca says, I work from home and can barely use the restroom during the day because I am so busy. Yeah. TJ said that's been totally disproven. There's checks in the software. Oh yeah, that's the thing. There's all sorts of checks in the software. There's mouse, loggers where they check to make sure you're actually moving and clicking, and there's all sorts of stuff they can do. But the other part of it, beyond making sure that they can prove the work's actually getting done in office, that Republicans are trying to say is what they want to do as part of this government efficiency bullshit is they want to say, well, we're going back to work in office. Oh, 25% of employees aren't coming back in the office? Well, if you won't work in office, you're fired, and then they just won't replace those people. Manti says any government officials that do their job for the people should be forced to step down, period. I don't know what you mean there. Mike Glinson said working from home as a government official, really? Yeah. We'll just do that. Lisa says it's not where you work, it's the quality of work you do. Yeah, exactly. If you're able to do whatever you need to do for your job, and you're able to do it from the comfort of your own home, and it's still getting done to the quality they expect, what's the difference? One of the other things, coming from a corporate setting, and having a background in management, is they like having employees work in office so they can see if you got all your stuff done and it looks like you're done for the day. Well, they can put you on another project, give you something else to go do, make you continue to work your full shift, and get even more, get as much out of you, maximize your potential. It's all bullshit, and that's how these rich assholes like Musk and Trump act. They want every bit of productivity they can get out of any of their employees, and they don't care what they can do to get it. Debbie said a lot of military spouses work from home and it helps with childcare. It's a huge benefit not having to pay for daycare. Nada says Social Security is an entitlement. We're entitled to it because we paid into it all of our working lives. Yeah, but I don't like the term entitlement. Because whenever Republicans like to use entitlement, they just mean, handout, right? That's their code word for handout. Mike's already gone. Lisa says her best friend works for the government from home. Yeah. Debbie says Bobo did an interview and she took her children with her saying, I got to do what I got to do. But she doesn't want anybody else working from home. Oh, TJ's already got that one. Yeah, that's just it. They don't like work from home. They think everybody who's working from home is, getting paid by their employer to do what I'm doing here, sit and do this or just scroll TikTok or do whatever, even though there's tons of evidence that it's actually more productive. And for some people, not everybody, but some people work way better from the comfort of their own home, where they're not distracted by the office and all of the people around them and the commotion and the interruptions, etc. It actually there's some people that are way more productive. Other people, have to be in office to be more productive. It's a mix. But to blanket say that for efficiency purposes only, we need everybody in office. It's not about efficiency. It's not about cost saving or anything else. I think the big chunk of it is they want everybody to be in office so they can fire those that are unable to come back and just never replace them and say, oh well, we just saved all those wages. It's no big deal. Deegan says a Democrat is bitterly angry that Biden is not speaking to the American people about what's up. Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that. That they're mad that Biden's not talking about anything with the election and or this or that. Until they say something official, I don't think anything's going on behind the scenes, or there's a reason they're not talking about it. So and Kate says, and the interruptions, talking about being interrupted while working in office. Yeah. Sitting there trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do, and you have 8, 10, 20 people, whatever the number is, coming up interrupting you and bugging you, trying to get whatever, answer whatever questions. Rational Karen says, it's crazy how MAGA insists on being the worst of humanity. What's the point? The need to self-sabotage. Yeah, that's just it. And they don't even realize how horrible they're being. They are in the find out stage and they don't even realize it. Debbie says work from home saves on gas, childcare expenses, and times for the commute. Yeah, I've heard of stories about like California that because of how bad the traffic is, work from home has saved people 2-hour one-way commutes. And they never left. They never left like Los Angeles. Like, I would never want a 2 hour commute to work. I thought a 20-minute commute was horrible. Rebecca says, we will see come January. At this point, I think we are prepared for the worst regardless. Yeah, but they're not going to be able to get much accomplished. And it's not going to be as bad as it could be because they don't have the votes to get anything done. They can't agree with themselves. I mean, we just got a funding deal to kick the can down the road to March, and they're already pissed because they had to work with Democrats to get it done. They're talking about having to, or they could be voting out Speaker Johnson. They may not vote for him come January 3rd in the next Speaker election. Like, they can't agree with themselves. It is ridiculous. So it's not going to be nearly as bad as it could be. Watkins says Republicans did that. Yeah. We're going to have to keep the pressure on and just calling out everything they do. Debbie says, I think they want to go back to the have and have nots. Oh, yeah, they would love to do that. They like it if they want that class separation. Rebecca's talking about saving rent for office space. Yeah, it's about government efficiency and going back to, and just cutting expenses. Work from home, you wouldn't have to pay for those government offices anymore. The big buildings and all of that stuff. You could cut a lot of that out, and now you're not paying those expenses. It is like it's not about actual efficiency. They're looking at ways of just cutting employees and calling it good. Rebecca said her commute used to be 2.5 hours each way. Oh, good Lord! No, thank you. Debbie said, "What has Trump said about Johnson? Haven't seen anything about him with the new funding bill. I haven't seen anything yet, but we'll probably get a midnight Truth Social post about how bad it is that he had to work with Democrats." Rebecca said, plus Trump is lazy, so he won't get much done. Yeah. That's the other thing. He's pretty lazy. He's not going to actually push to make a lot of his goals. It's going to be more just... he's going to try to do what he can, and if it doesn't work, he'll move on to the next shiny object. He's not going to put in a lot of work to make a lot of things happen. Rational Karen says, ending work from home is really about control. They can't stand not being able to micromanage as well. That's true, too. Yeah, it's like they could save a bunch of money not paying for office rent and things, but they would rather micromanage. And like I said a little bit ago, they also want the ability to pile on more tasks. Oh, well, you got, an extra hour. Here's something else you can start on. And every day you can work a little more on it or whatever. One of the things I learned working retail years ago, they used to always say, well, if you have time to stand around, you have time to clean. And they would always find cleaning tasks or whatever. And if they thought you weren't being productive. So a lot of people were always just constantly moving from place to place, never accomplishing anything, looking busy just to avoid getting that extra task. And that's kind of what they want. They want the ability to control you in an office setting if you don't look busy enough, to give you more busy work, to make sure that they're getting every penny out of value out of what they're paying you. It's completely ridiculous. Rational Karen says exactly. I just was talking about that. Deegan says, can a naturalized citizen like Elon Musk obtain security clearances? Yes. Has nothing to do with your citizenship status. Has everything to do with everything else involving you. Now, he may potentially not be able to get a clearance because of him overstaying his visa. I think he said, yeah, came on a student visa, then went straight to work or something. He wasn't actually a student, and then got his citizenship that way. Like that kind of stuff may affect him being able to get security clearances. Um, Plus, he's got seemingly ties to foreign countries that could affect it. But his citizenship status doesn't play really a role in whether or not he gets the clearance at all. Rebecca says, time to lean, time to clean, time to talk, time to stock. Yeah, all things I heard in work in retail. And them giving uh, any reason to give you more work. With all the clowns and him, the ringleader, there will be a problem for everyone but the wealthy. Oh, yeah. Kate says it's about control and puffing up manager egos. Definitely. That's a chunk of it. Debbie says Musk has government contracts and control over some satellites. He's dangerous. Yeah, he is. Um, and even though he already has some government clearances, it's government clearances are weird. Like I'm not by no means an expert on security clearances, but the way I understand it is there's like a lot of different tiers and levels, etc. It's very compartmentalized. Like you don't just get a one clearance for everything for a lot of people, even when you're on the same level. Like two people maybe have the same clearance level, but only be allowed to see certain pieces of information regarding whatever it is they got their uh, clearances for. And if somebody else is on a different project, they wouldn't have the same clearances to view the same kind of information. So he may not get full clearance and only be allowed to see the stuff for which he already has contracts. Debbie says, had a manager with the biggest ego, fought to get us back in office and lost. Yeah, it's a lot of it's ego and a lot of it's control. Wanting you to work from home, wanting you to do to know what you're doing, because they're convinced, even if you get your stuff done, that clearly there was more you could have done or something else they could have gotten out of you or what have you. Rebecca says Musk is going to piss Trump off at some point and he will be canceled. He will overstep his bounds. Oh, yeah. They've got too similar of a personality. And when they butt heads, Musk will be the one gone because you can't remove the president of the United States like that. And don't get me wrong, they could remove Trump. But it'd be much easier to get rid of Musk. Trump will do that before anything. If it looks like Musk is getting too much media attention, if it looks like Musk is getting, too popular and people are liking Musk or whatever, if he's taking the spotlight, they'll go away. Or if Donald Trump just gets it in his head that Elon is making him look dumb, if he thinks having Elon around is hurting his image, Trump, he'll get rid of Musk. Kate says, I'm retired now and self-employed. Oh, that'd be awesome. Waiting for that day. Rational Karen says, I saw a report, not sure if it's true. FBI and DHS say no to Elon due to secret foreign contact. Yeah, that's the thing. They're going to have to go through DOJ background checks. And this is why Donald Trump wanted to avoid using the FBI background checks. They wanted to use private companies to do the background checks. Well, they don't have the tools the FBI would. The minute this stuff comes out, they ain't going to get security clearances. Now, Donald Trump could tell them, to do it anyway. I think he's got some discretion there, but still. Debbie said, I thought Trump would turn on Musk, but I don't know because Musk is his golden goose. Yeah, but again, when it comes down to how much attention is Musk getting, is he overshadowing Trump? Does Trump think that Musk is making him look foolish? If the right person pats Donald Trump on the back and says, hey, Donnie, you're going to look like a genius if you send Musk packing and you push for X, Y, or Z. If he believes the person and they convince him with hard enough, Musk will be gone. Um, Rational Karen says, unfortunately, Trump can give Elon security clearances like he did Jared, regardless of agency denials. I believe so. I don't think they closed that loophole yet. But the whole thing is that's going to be horrible publicity for Trump, and ultimately they're going to butt heads, and he's still going to be gone, and they'll revoke his security clearance. Brent says Trump will dump him in time. Yeah, they're going to butt heads, and Musk will be gone. That'll be the end of that. Like, Musk will not be part of the administration 4 years in. Hell, Donald Trump may not be part of the administration 4 years in. I've been saying a lot that Donald Trump may just not he may not live through 4 years. They may have to impeach and remove him. They may have to 25th Amendment him. Yeah, Brent says Trump's term will be less than 4 years. Yeah, good chance of that happening. Kate says it'll end up being a pissing contest between Musk and Trump. Yep, that's exactly what'll happen. And Musk will lose by nature of the fact that Trump is president of the United States, or will be. TJ says you'll never know Valerie talking to a troll he kicked out, I'm sure. Debbie said, do you see what Romney said? We can't get mad at anything Trump does because he told us he would, but we voted him in anyway. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's Romney's kind of way of saving face a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know why he would say it that way. Of course we can get mad at what he does. Even though we knew he was going to do it, yes, we can get mad at him. That's kind of, I mean, that part is kind of dumb. Bart says, what part of Indiana are you from? Not in Indiana. Where do you get the idea that I'm in Indiana? Isn't Musk a billionaire non-citizen? No. He is a citizen. He's a naturalized citizen, which means he had citizenship somewhere else and he obtained U.S. citizenship later. Deegan said, do you think RFK Jr. will be confirmed with his drug use in the past? Beyond his drug use, just all of his ideas, him wanting to get rid of vaccines and all kinds of stuff, I don't think he makes it out of the Senate. Rational Karen says, on the other hand, Trump could refuse to give Elon clearance as a control upper hand. Yeah, exactly. He could. There's a whole lot of things that could be done and held over. That is definitely something Trump would do, is play some kind of a control game. Brent says, felon in the House, first time for that. He's not a president. I would have to agree. Even though Ted's already gone, y'all need to get the fuck over it. Trump is president. Well, no. No, he's not president. I know he's already gone, but Trump's not president. He will not be president until January 20th. They don't know how any of this shit works. All they care about is, my guy won the election. Low-key Texan says RFK will be confirmed. Why do you say that? Curious to see why. Because a lot of senators know they have to get reelected, and voting in dumb fucks like RFK Jr., not a good way to do it. Rebecca says, I've always been a person that says he's our elected president. We need to respect the office until now. Yeah. And I think at least part of the MAGA movement, and there's a section of this country out there, that when Donald Trump says something, they think he knows more than we do by virtue of just being president. Like, just because he was in the office doesn't mean he learned a damn thing. Donald Trump is an idiot. Always has been, always will be. And we shouldn't give him any credit just because he was in the office. You have to judge him by the job they do in that position. Brent said, I will not be watching. I'm guessing you're talking about the inauguration. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to watch it either. I did watch him get inaugurated in 2016, but I don't know if I'm going to watch this time around. TJ said, I'll be there playing bagpipes. Yeah, you were talking about that on the podcast. Because I guess there's a movement trying to get a bunch of people to show up to make a whole bunch of noise to disrupt the inauguration and his speech and stuff. I mean, if I knew for certain you'd be there playing bagpipes, TJ, I'd watch just for that. Low-key Texan, hold Biden accountable. Wait, you can't. He pardoned 10 years of crimes. Yeah, that's more stupid shit. Got a couple of dumb fucks out there, TJ. Deegan said, is there not enough reason or evidence to revoke Elon Musk's citizenship right now? Oh, probably. Problem is it takes way too long. Go ahead and get rid of that one. Yeah, like the... I think like the next naturalization hearing for something like that is like 4 or 5 years out. There are plenty of cases ahead of him, and that's the problem. One of the things that the bipartisan border bill was going to do was really up the funding and create more judge positions, things like that, to push things along for immigration cases, for naturalization cases, for asylum cases, all sorts of things. And Republicans had killed it. Debbie said Hillary wanted Trump to do well. When he succeeded, we succeeded, but Trump wanted a Biden depression. Oh, yeah. He did. He kept saying the stock market's going to crash. For somebody who claims to be a patriot and love this country, he talked an awful lot of shit about this country. Good Lord. And the people that follow him love to claim about how patriotic they are while tearing this country down. Debbie says, you couldn't pay me to watch that BS. I couldn't even watch the sit down with Biden a few weeks ago. I didn't watch the sit down with Biden. If I knew for sure TJ would be playing bagpipes trying to disrupt the inauguration, I would love to watch that. I'd be tuning in just to see the cover, the news cover, the bagpiper trying to interrupt things. But as far as actually watching the inauguration, I don't really have any interest in it. TJ says He never says anything positive about America. No, he doesn't. Unless he's done it, then it's the greatest ever. Otherwise, it all sucks. Debbie says, Trump called us trash, a third world country, and said, this country is going to hell. Patriot my ass. Yeah, exactly. Rebecca says he has access to the bagpipes, just saying. You know, knowing TJ, I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him. Lori Report says, I hope you set up your QFS account. Don't know what the hell you're talking about. Deegan says, what really happens to the deportees' properties like house, bank account, Social Security? Well, if they're deported for being here undocumented, illegally, etc., like I think the bank account would be fine. If they own a house outright or they have a mortgage, that's an entirely another different story. Not sure. As far as like their house, as far as Social Security benefits, if they are here illegally, they pay in, but they do not get to claim. So all that money that they pay in just goes into the fund, but they never get a draw on it. So it's actually a benefit. Debbie says that's a great question. Republicans might take it. Yeah. I don't know about like their bank account. I think that would be safe with international stuff they could transfer. But a lot of them don't have bank accounts. They operate in cash. From at least my experience. From what I've seen. Like, there's so many things. And they can't... I don't know how some of that works as far as whether or not they would lose their property. But again, I don't think they would try to buy a piece of actual property if they weren't here legally. Because that ties, there's documentation. And that just opens them up to a whole new can of worms, and that could get them caught and deported. So there might not be a whole lot of risk there. Rational Karen says, I'm boycotting inauguration and all of his news conferences. It's nothing but adventures in Fantasyland. Yeah. I am probably not going to be watching his inauguration. Like I said, unless it's to catch TJ playing the bagpipes. And as far as the news conferences, I'll probably do what I have been doing, and that is catching them after the fact and reading summaries and transcripts to ferret out what actually has been said so I can do a few TikToks on it. I try to avoid watching them live other than clips other people have put together like here on TikTok. Brent says, I'm Canadian and the shit show will happen if he puts tariffs on. Oh, yeah. Ada says hello from Russia. Okay, cool. Rebecca says to Bren, sadly, Bren, we are well aware. Do you have a spare bedroom? Yeah, a lot of people looking for ways out potentially. Debbie says, heck, how big is the backyard? I'll use a tent and call it camping. I've seen some creators on here. They were looking for, like, legitimately trying to offer places for some Americans who wanted to get out and move to avoid the next 4 years of the shit show. And if for those that that have to make that option, I don't begrudge anybody if they think that's the best option for them. It's going to be bad, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as what they hope because Donald Trump is inept and incompetent. Debbie said, I thought the Canadian president didn't want us migrating there. Yeah. Trudeau doesn't, I don't think. Rebecca says, we aren't jumping ship for good, but may need a respite for a few. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, Prime Minister Trudeau. Yeah, I kind of get that too. The idea of needing to be away for just a bit. And Trump says these days of Trumpism shall pass. Oh yeah, they'll pass because he's inept, he's incompetent. He's going to struggle. They don't have enough majority in either chamber to really get a lot accomplished. They have one of the thinnest majorities of any Congress going back at least 100 years. They're at 3 votes. They lose 3 votes and things don't pass. Beyond that, Donald Trump has pulled 3 members of Congress to his cabinet, one of whom has resigned, in Matt Gaetz. So now, for at least a little while, as people start leaving to take their positions, they will have 1 vote. Any one no vote will cancel anything, and they can't agree with themselves. Like, they're not going to get much done. And then you got the one Republican who doesn't want any committee responsibilities or anything, and it basically has said, I'm going to be a Republican, but I'm not going to do anything with the Republican Party, even though they're like leaning heavily into Doge. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Debbie says Americans treat immigrants horribly, but now we're looking to migrate to another country. Yeah. So, except this time, unlike the last 4 years, the group that's looking to migrate is part of the group that actually treats migrants and immigrants with respect. Deegan says Canada said they will retaliate by cutting off our power and energy. Yeah. Several states get a big chunk, if not all, of their power supply from Canadian power plants because we buy energy, we buy electricity from Canada. We get 60% of the oil that we refine in this country comes from Canada. And they have said if we start putting on tariffs, they're going to shut off the power that goes to the United States and stop selling us oil. And at that point, yes, states could potentially go dark. You know, the thing is going to be let's see, where is that here? Debbie said I heard northern states would go dark. Yeah. It could happen. It all depends on how much pressuring Republicans have on Trump to make it better. I think if these threats are right now, it's all posturing at this point. Brent says I think thinks Trump is posturing. He's never implemented anything. Yeah, that's the other thing. He's posturing right now because he's used to being a bully. The first term he was able to kind of bully and push and get his way. Now everybody knows who he is. They know what he's about. They also know he's incompetent. They've also seen his leadership style. They see what Republicans have done in Congress the last 2 years when they had the House. And they also know he is out in 4 years, max. If not before, one way or the other. They have no reason to take him seriously at this point. They're going to push back. For instance, he has his minions, which are useless. TJ says they won't do that. Seems a bit over the top. Yeah, it could be over the top, and maybe they won't. And it could be posturing on their side as well, saying, "Hey, look, you do this. We're giving you a huge, penalty if you do this. This is going to be the outcome of you fucking around." So, I think they're trying to dissuade him by saying how bad it could potentially be. Debbie says, "I hope not either. Other countries have to show Trump they won't be bullied." Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're standing up to him this time because they know he's a lot weaker than they thought he was the last time. The critic says Trump is building an oligarchy with his cabinet picks, to which Rebecca says he's building a clown car. Yeah, I think that's pretty close. They're trying to do something, but they're so inept. What they're trying to build is going to more or less resemble a clown car. JDBZ says he won't be fighting Congress this time. He'll do whatever he wants, and Democrats can't do shit. Well, TJ already kicked him out of here, but he's wrong. Because remember, during Donald Trump's first administration, they shut the government down for 35 days because they couldn't agree on funding for the border wall. They can't agree with themselves. So yes, he's going to be fighting Congress. The first half of Donald Trump's first term, he was fighting with his own Congress. And now they don't need Donald Trump. He needs them more than they need him. And that's what I keep saying, because there's going to come a point when they're going to have to say, okay, this is too far. We have to cut our losses here. He's got to go. We got to take our chances with J.D. Vance because he's hurting our chances to get reelected at this point. Debbie says, if I were another country, I would show Trump real quick what FAFO is all about. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's where he's going to be at. He's going to be in the find out stage for a long time. Deegan said, the judge said Trump's immunity is denied, so when is his sentencing? Currently postponed indefinitely. There's not a current date for sentencing. I'm assuming that he's going to get sentenced sometime after he's no longer president. They're going to kick it down the road until he's no longer president. And I think you're going to get a final decision from the judge that it's delayed until like 30 days after Trump's out of the office of the presidency, something like that. They're not going to make like the charges aren't going to go away. They're not just going to say, well, it didn't happen, case dismissed. He will ultimately face sentencing of some kind. And I think it's going to be prison time. If it wasn't prison time, I think they would have already had the sentencing. If it was just going to be a fine, they would have held the sentencing, said, okay, here's your fine, $100,000, you're done. Rebecca says, which is BS, he was convicted. He should be sentenced like every other felon. Yeah, I agree with you. I do. He should the sentencing should have been done. However, we can go back and blame Merrick Garland because Merrick Garland sat on his hands for 2 years. If they would have treated him like a serious criminal and been investigating him from January 20th on, or whenever Merrick Garland got confirmed as Attorney General, we wouldn't be dealing with this now because the charges against Trump would have come out in 22 instead of 24. And then New York would have charged him right after and said, "Okay, here's the charges," they would have gone to trial, and the outcome probably would have been the same. They would have delayed it as long as they could have, and then Trump would have gotten convicted. Problem is, he didn't get convicted until July, and right after that he got convicted. That's when the immunity decision came out, and they kept kicking it down the road. Then it was the RNC, and they kept finding reasons to delay it. And because the judge didn't want to appear political, he was trying to be impartial because of the political process. And at some point, that is a loophole we're going to have to fix. TJ said, "How about the reality show where Trump is in prison and has to fight his way out?" That'd be funny. Rebecca said, "True, in the logistics of the Secret Service." Oh, for him going to prison. Yeah, that's the other half of it. Brent says the Barr hid most of Garland's report. Most of it was redacted. You're thinking of the Mueller report. And that was about whether or not Russia meddled in 2016. And yes, Bill Barr redacted most of it, gave a revised summary that was mostly non-factual. But yeah, Bill Barr, when he was Attorney General, laid his thumb firmly on the scale of that all and basically said there's nothing here. And then the Trump supporters went, well, if his Attorney General said there's nothing here, there's nothing there, and moved on. Yeah, I know what this one's trying to do. And you gone. Yeah, the Mueller report, that by itself should have... Wait, Victoria Spars quit the Republican caucus today, but heard she's nuts. Might be problem for Mike. I hadn't heard she quit the Republican caucus. I know she said she wasn't going to serve on any committees, things like that. I hadn't heard she was no longer a Republican. Last I heard, she said she was still going to stay a Republican, but didn't want to do any of the stuff that would be required of her to be anywhere in the party. No committee assignments, things like that. But that is definitely a problem because they can't afford to lose very many votes for the Republicans to do, to pass anything. And if she's saying I'm not really a Republican anymore, that's looking bad for the Republicans. Brent asks, when are you on Rational Boomer podcast next? I believe tomorrow. I recorded a podcast with Mike last night. As far as I know, it is going to air tomorrow. TJ's the guest today. If you want to go check that out. Debbie says, why not go independent? Why stay Republican when you know they are corrupt and incompetent? It's not about either one of those things. Because she actually agrees with a lot of their ideologies. Her doing this is more of a, you guys are inept. You're not going to get anything done. Prove you can lead and do something, and then I'll come back in and I'll be a worthwhile member of the party. But she agrees with MAGA. She's going to spend a lot of her time working with the non-existent DOJ department, trying to gut government spending. So she completely agrees with MAGA and Trump and all of it. It's just she doesn't like the current leadership and thinks they're not going to get anything accomplished. Deegan says Judge Garland has been very weak and ineffective. What do you think? I agree. 2 years ago, when we were at this point after the midterms and they were releasing the January 6th report and public pressure came out to Merrick Garland, where are the charges? Where are the charges? Why haven't you charged him? How is the investigation coming? All, etc. and then we find out he really hadn't started it. If I was Joe Biden, I would have fired his ass. I think one of the biggest mistakes of the Biden presidency was ever hiring Merrick Garland. Gallifrey J says, "Hey Eric, hope all is well." Well, thank you. Hi to you too. TJ says, "A full podcast." Oh, for tomorrow, yeah. Listen to TJ's podcast. Good job, TJ. 45 minutes. Yeah, it was great, except Mike was telling me when I recorded mine, and then TJ was also telling me that apparently there was another entire half that just disappeared. Don't know what happened. Mike can't find the recording. They can't. It was just gone. So apparently there was going to be even longer, and it just got lost in the ether. Debbie said, so basically she said MAGA is too stupid to work with. Damn, yeah. And she's right. Debbie said he should have handled January 6th while it was fresh in Americans' minds. Yeah. He should have dealt with it then. Really should have. It should have been dealt with right after J6, and he should have done something. Have you seen Moskowitz flip? I know I think he's getting, or they're floating him as a potential pick for something. And that wouldn't be. He's kind of flipping a little bit, but it wouldn't be bad to put a Democrat in one of those positions. That might help a little bit. And maybe that's what he's trying to do, is flip just enough that he can be a voice of reason inside the administration. But I'm not sure. I'm just kind of guessing. Rational Karen says, why in the heck have Democrat presidents always put Republicans in as DOJ and FBI heads? Well, as far as DOJ heads, as far as being the Attorney General, it's not always a Republican. Merrick Garland was seen as fair, more moderate, and I think part of it was Joe Biden felt like he had to give Merrick Garland some kind of a high-profile position because he was nominated for the Supreme Court, and Mitch McConnell said, fuck you, and held up his seat, never held one single vote. As far as head of the FBI, most of the time what happens is Republicans put in FBI heads. They serve a 10-year term, but Democrats never fire them. They just let it ride. That's more of what happened there. J Meg says, yep, how did Merrick Garland allow it to get this far? He needs to be fired ASAP. Problem is, it won't matter. He's out of a job as of January 20th. He should have been fired 2 years ago. Stewart says Jack Smith would have been a better AG for Biden. Maybe. I think Jack Smith did a great job in the role he was in. Probably should have had somebody more like Amy Klobuchar. And I probably butchered her name. Or just a bunch of other people that would have been better suited to be Attorney General out of the Democrats. Democrats would have had a lot of options, and they could have brought somebody younger into a high-profile position like that to build up for the future. But instead, they went with Merrick Garland kind of as a consolation prize for not getting Supreme Court. Terrence says Garland is more suited for Supreme Court, too deliberate. Exactly. That's the thing. Like, he's very deliberate, very cautious, didn't want to appear political. Gallifrey J says to be viewed as bipartisan, talking about FBI and DOJ heads being Republican. Yeah. Gallifrey J says, I think they're setting him up to fail and will blame him for the failure. Are you talking about Moskowitz? Could be. Brent says Pelosi and McConnell should retire and enjoy the rest of their years. Well, McConnell's only got 2 years left in the Senate. And that's the thing. Like, he's going to be done in 26. He will not be running for re-election as far as anybody knows right now. Now, he could change his mind, but he needs to go. We've got too many old people in both parties who will not get out of their own way, and both parties keep running these people out there every single time. Are you telling me with Nancy Pelosi, she's what, 84, I think, that you couldn't find somebody younger to represent San Francisco? You couldn't find any Democrat in San Francisco that could win an election in San Francisco other than Nancy Pelosi. And this isn't a knock on Nancy Pelosi. She did a good job for all of her years in office, and great job as Speaker of the House. The problem is they don't get out of their own way and try to talk these people into retiring. And it's both parties. I complain about him a lot. We've got my senator, the guy who has been in the Senate longer than I have been alive. Chuck, I am older than chocolate chip cookies Grassley. Man was born in 1933. Chocolate chip cookie recipe was first printed in anywhere in 1938. Man's older than the chocolate chip cookie. He is 91 years old. He will be 95 in 2028 when he is up for re-election. And he has filed paperwork to run again. He already said after he won his last election, I'm going to run again. He'd be 101 if he served his entire term. 101. And the man still wants to do politics. They're passing laws for things that will not affect them. They may not even live to see that the law get signed. They could vote on it in the afternoon. By the time Biden or Trump or whoever signs it that night, the next day, they may not be here because they're that old. It's a fact of how old they are. They need to go away. Debbie says Biden is old school, wouldn't fire Garland. Norms isn't an excuse when it comes to protecting us. Yeah. Gallifrey J says, and they voted against AOC for a dude that's in his 70s with throat cancer. Yeah. They will not, for whatever reason, go with young people. As part of the podcast that I did, I recorded the Rational Boomer podcast. It's out tomorrow. We were talking about that, and one of the things, I kind of went on an age rant in there too. And Adam Schiff is in his 60s, I believe. He turns around, says, okay, I'm done running for the House. I'm going to run to fill Dianne Feinstein's seat in the Senate. He could have stayed in the House. They could have run a young Democrat in the Senate, gotten a young person in there, and gotten some fresh blood. But instead, they took an old guy and ran him in a different race. Jesus Christ. Sometimes the Democrats can't get out of their own way. Brent said term limits. Yeah. The term limits, age limits, some combination of both. Debbie says Pelosi is a pain in the ass. What she did to AOC is effed up. She wants to control everything. Yeah, and I remember hearing at the time when Donald Trump announced she was part of the group that talked Joe Biden into running for re-election. Then he stumbled at the debate, and she was one of the ones saying he needed to drop out. She potentially cost us this election. Rational Karen says Trump can't pick any more from the House. Could Moskowitz be in the running to turn Dems against him? Could be. Thing is, just because Trump nominates him, he could say no. He could say no. He could say, I don't want to be involved. Um, Terrence says, I'm not for age limits in Congress or any workplace, but we need age limits. Yeah, that's the point. They don't need. I've talked about it a lot of times on my lives and on my appearances in the Rational Boomer podcast. But you had Dianne Feinstein. She died this year as a senator from California. 91 years old as a senator, was still going and having votes in the Senate. She would need to vote on a bill. It'd be her turn to vote. All she had to say was yes or no. And she would stand up and start debating the bill, and her aide would have to tap her and say, "No, just say yes, just say yes, just say yes." Had to even tell her how to vote in some cases. Didn't know what she was doing. It was bad enough that her daughter had to go to court and get power of attorney so the daughter could handle Dianne Feinstein's finances because she couldn't do it anymore. But yet she was still voting on legislation. That's ridiculous. Deegan said, will Miss AOC get her new or anticipated post in the Senate? Well, she was up for a position in the House. And no, she's not getting it. They went with an old white guy, a 70-year-old white guy instead of her. Ryan says, are you left, right, or center? New to live. I'm a left-leaning independent. I've never affiliated with a party. I have voted left, right. I voted third party. But I will say this, I have never regretted a vote for a Democrat. Sam says Sheldon Whitehouse would be good as AG. Yeah, probably would be great. Stewart says David Hogg was launched a bid to serve in leadership of the Democratic National Committee. Okay, I'm not familiar with who he is, but sure. We need to get fresh blood in. Debbie says when you can't pick your feet and walk, it's time to go. Kind of. Christina says if Biden remained the Democratic presidential candidate, wouldn't have changed enough to swing it for Dems. I believe he would have won it. Joe Biden should have won. I think he would have beat Trump, hands down. Because some of the people protesting that chose not to vote for Kamala Harris would have voted for Joe Biden. There was at least a section of voters who refused to vote for Kamala Harris because of how Joe Biden was pushed out of the race. There was a section of Democratic left-leaning voters that refused to vote for Kamala Harris because people couldn't have accepted a woman and specifically a woman of color as president. That was part of it. I don't want to say it was a big part, but that was part of it. There were some people who would not vote for her. That's a fact. The other thing is he wouldn't have listened to bad advice. He wouldn't have run around the last 2-3 weeks of the campaign cycle with Liz Cheney trying to grab as many disenfranchised Republican voters as possible. And I'm not faulting Kamala Harris for that. She got bad advice. Joe Biden, being the old veteran that he is, would have realized it was bad advice and said, not happening. Because he knows exactly who the Cheneys are from years of working with Dick Cheney. I think Joe Biden would have won against Donald Trump. Hands down. I think we wouldn't have lost some of the House and the Senate seats that we lost with Joe Biden on the ticket. I think some of those people would have voted down ballot differently with Joe Biden in office over a Donald Trump. Because they couldn't bring themselves to vote in a favorable Congress for Kamala Harris for whatever reason. And some people didn't vote for Kamala Harris because they think there was no primary. There was a primary, but the primary all voted for Joe Biden. I said it then, I'm going to say it now. If for those that were saying Joe Biden was too old to run the race and too old to be president in January, you were effectively saying Joe Biden was too old to be president now. He should have resigned, made her president then. I said it then. I got TikToks. You can go back and look. That should have been what happened. But when that's not what happened, I also said Kamala Harris should have been the logical choice. And people, including Nancy Pelosi, were pushing for a big fight on the convention floor and making it messy. And that's not what we needed. We needed steady leadership. And the Democrats could not get out of their own way. Debbie says, I get Pelosi nominating a fossil with cancer, but why did other Dems go along with it? She carries a lot of sway. Rational Karen says David Hogg is a Stony Douglas High School survivor who organized a March for Lives. And I'm guessing Patricia is saying he's the youngest representative from Florida and a Parkland survivor. Okay. Gotcha. I just wasn't familiar with the name. They should have had a primary. What if Trump wasn't the GOP nominee? The ignorance is crazy with Dems. Yeah, but they had a primary. And they were up against a time limit. They had until like January or July, what was it? There's a date right after, like 10 days after Joe Biden stepped out of the race, that they had to have their nominee in order to appear on all ballots across all states. They just didn't have time to rerun an entire primary and start the whole process. It was too late in the game. Joe Biden should have stayed in. They should have looked back at history, back to 68 and LBJ and Herbert Humphrey. March, LBJ steps aside, says, I'm not running for re-election. They give it to Humphrey, and he gets smoked by Nixon. Deegan says, don't you agree that Democrats are usually cowards and permanently weak? They don't fight back. They don't fight back nearly as much as they should. Patricia says 50% of Republicans voted for Trump. 48.3% of Democrats voted. These aren't good numbers for either. Yeah. Christina said Biden released his delegates and they backed Harris. Primaries are a party and delegate process. Exactly. And there's a lot of people that don't understand that. And I asked that question a lot in this live. And is if instead of doing what he did and just saying, I'm not seeking re-election, if Joe Biden had resigned and made Kamala Harris president, or if he had died that day and Kamala Harris became president, would the people saying there was no primary, we didn't choose her, would they still have the same issue? If not, why? Because that's the logical step. She was the next in line. It's not like they said, okay, well, Kamala Harris is the VP, but we're going to run Nancy Pelosi, or we're going to go with Hillary, or something like that. They didn't pick somebody else. They picked the next person that was in line for the presidency. It just made sense. Rational Karen says these old school Dems have egos too big for their pants. Yeah, exactly. Stewart says David Hogg, a survivor of the 2018 shooting at his high school in Parkland. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I just didn't know him by name. And that would be, if they got him somewhere in leadership, that's great. We need to get some of these old people out of here that are been around forever. We need to change it up, and it's almost getting to the point. In about another 10 years, it's time for the millennials to hand over the reins of power and the levers of power, and leave it all in the hands of the Gen Zs and younger. Like, we need to get the levers of power out of the hands of the silent generation and the baby boomers. They've held on to it for far too long. Debbie says Pelosi wanted to put who she had picked for president. Her control issues cost us the election. Oh, yeah. Nikki says MTG harassed Hogg disgustingly. Walked behind him and screamed when he went to Hill to lobby 2A. Oh, yeah. She's a class act, that one. Nikki says he was a traumatized teen, couldn't believe how she acted. Oh, I could. She's a class act, and I'm being very sarcastic. Debbie said, I'm going to need House Dems to tell Pelosi to go sit on a cactus or go sit at home, as long as she's not sitting in the House. Debbie also said Frost is a school shooting survivor as well, right? Not sure on that. Dems being the laziest communicators make themselves look like titled elites. Yeah. Christina says, in my opinion, nothing was wrong with Biden. He was 100% capable, but the optics just got insurmountably bad. Yeah, and it didn't help. For 3 weeks, you had Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, talking to the media, and then the media running stories. Well, is Joe Biden going to step aside? Is he going to stay in the race? He'd say, I'm not going anywhere. But they'd keep going. And so they kept hammering it home against him. Deegan said, can Biden resign right now if it was possible? Also, if VP Harris doesn't certify the votes, then who? He could, but for what? What would be gained by making Kamala Harris president now? Nothing changes. Realistically. Nothing changes. Kamala Harris would only get to be president until January 20th at 12 noon. It doesn't start a 4-year new term for her. It doesn't prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. Nothing like that. All it is, it's a petty little jab. And when they don't have a favorable Congress, what's the point? She's not going to get anything passed. At most, it would be well, here's a consolation prize. I'm going to make you president for a month, right? There's nothing to be gained from making her president at this point. If he was going to do it, he should have done it back in July when he stepped aside. He should have said, okay, I'm not running. You guys are right. My health's an issue. I enjoy being president, but I'm done as of 12 noon tomorrow. I am resigning the presidency, is what he probably should have done, and made her president then. Or stayed in the race and ran. Clearly, doing it the way we did it wasn't the right move because it didn't work. All right, I've been going a little over an hour and a half. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. And I appreciate you guys for joining me. Some of you have been in the... I'll cover this real quick. Stewart says he should have done it January 1st, 2024. Yeah, something like that. When the questions started coming out about his fitness, he should have resigned. Deegan says, like Nixon. Exactly. When Watergate all happened, Nixon said, hey, I'm done as of noon tomorrow, and resigned the presidency. So that's what he should have done at some point. Or he should have stayed in the race because what we did didn't work. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate those of you who joined. I will be doing more of these lives. I want to remind everybody that this live will be up over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan at YouTube. I have a link tree in my bio. If you didn't catch the whole thing and you want to go back and catch whatever you missed, that's why I post them up there. Also, I encourage everybody to check out the Rational Boomer podcast. Today's guest is our great moderator, TJ. We've talked about it several times. He had a good episode today. I encourage you to check it out. Either check out Rational Boomer on TikTok, and you can find the link tree in his bio. There's also a link to affiliated creators in my bio, which will get you to the Rational Boomer's link tree, and will get you to the podcast, or just search Rational Boomer over on YouTube if you want the video podcast. And TJ's today's guest. I believe I am tomorrow's guest over on the podcast. Recorded that yesterday with Mike. I encourage you to check it out. It is a great show. We went about an hour and a half, hour 45 for that one. So I hope you guys check that out. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me. If you did want to check out, like I said, the rest of this live, whatever you missed, it is going to be up on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan, over on YouTube, also on that link tree in my bio. So I want to thank you for joining me, and I will catch you the next time I go live. All right, another good live, made it through. A lot of good conversation. Picked up a few people. So it was a good night. Going to be doing a lot more of these. And I hope you guys enjoy them. And I will catch you the next time I go live.